So Christy put out a strike call in her tester group asking if anyone was interested in sewing one up for a promotion. I of course quickly jumped on to, hey, I want to sew for you. I want to see if a Rapport is plus size friendly and see what I can do with it. I was fortunate enough to be selected, and I told her any color, so surprised me with what she needed to send. My fabric arrived a couple days later, and I was lucky enough to get the orange Rapport fabric. If you don't know me, orange is my absolute favorite color, so I was really excited to sew this up. Since the neckline had me so stressed out during testing, I wanted to show everyone how simple it really is to create it, and it's really a nice addition to your top. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go over to my sewing room and see if we can put this top together, and then I will be back after my demonstration with some final thoughts. So as you can see, I have kind of laid out my fabric. I wanted to make sure that my top pattern was in fact going to fit on each section of the Rapport. I was a little concerned because obviously I do sew plus size, so I kind of wanted to be sure that this fabric is going to work for me. So I've laid it out, and I've also prepared my pattern. This is the Vista top, which I was actually, I was in the testing group, so I'm confident that the pattern will fit. So I'm not hesitant to use my only Rapport fabric to give it a try, because I do know it's going to fit. The Vista top is part of the new George and Ginger sizing chart, which means it's kind of an inch by inch size range. So instead of grading between, the Vista top is part of George and Ginger's new size chart, which is an inch by inch design. So this is actually the first company I have ever sewn that I am one solid size from top to bottom. I sew the size 30 for reference, which I think their highest, their chart extends to the size 36, I believe. So as you can see with my fabric, my Rapport fabric folded in half, I do have enough of each design that I'm going to be able to cut a front and a back from both of the panels. I believe they're fat halves. I have enough width of each design. So as you can see, since I've folded my Rapport fabric in half and I've laid my pattern piece down on each, well, this one is the back half, this is the floral design, and I plan to use that for the back. So I've laid my back bodice piece down just to confirm that it's wide enough, and it is, which makes me extremely happy, because I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to make a top and maybe a little pair of like shorts or something along that line, but we'll see. Definitely my biggest concern was being able to make a top, which it looks like we're going to be able to do, which makes me extremely happy. So I'm going to go ahead and start by cutting each of these panels apart. There are clear lines. You'll be able to see where the print changes, so I'm just going to cut along those lines. And again, the same edge in the middle. You can see where the print meets the solid of the shirt panel. And for reference, the large floral, and this is on all of the colors, the large floral flower is slightly off-centered, and it was intended to be that way, so you don't have just a huge flower right in the middle of maybe your bust or your belly, depending on your sizes. And this gives you a little bit more flexibility. Say if you are a smaller size, you could do a more central floral in the middle and still have this width of fabric. Maybe if you wanted to do a waistband or some sort of color blocking, you would have that option. But I kind of like that it's off-centered, so we're going to work with that. And I'm excited to sew this up and see how my Vista top turns out. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and cut these panel pieces apart, and I'll check back in just a few minutes. Now that I have all three of the panels cut out, I will go ahead and cut out each of my bodice pieces and continue on with putting together my Vista top. So far I have assembled my bodice with the sleeves. The front and the back bodice now have sleeves, and as you can see, I've used all three of my fabrics. I have also assembled my neckline facing, just sewing the shoulder seams and a little serger finish around the edges. I have completed the step for sewing together the two pieces of twist B as well as twist A, and now I am ready to show you how to insert the twists into the neckline, which is something I struggled a little bit with during testing. I couldn't wrap my mind around the written directions, so I'm hoping that this video will help a few people who might be having a similar issue. And it's really much easier than I was making it. So the first thing we need to do is, as you can see, I have marked, the directions will tell you to put a pin in the two wider edges of this twist. And that's just so that when you start twisting them, they're easy to tell apart and you won't accidentally mix them up. So all we need to do is match our first pin with our center front clip. I'm gonna go ahead, I'll just put my pin here just so I don't lose it. So the next step is to take the lower portion of the twist and just kind of spin it up to this clip, which is the quarter point, using only the front neckline, where normally when we're marking quarter points we take into account for the neck, the back, the center back. For this particular twist, it only happens in the front, so we had to mark the quarter between the shoulder seam and the center front. Now that we have the first two clips holding our first twist in place, we're going to go ahead and take this over to our sewing machine and just run a basting stitch along this edge. You'll just use, I like to use clips. If you prefer pins, that's fine. And gently make these two edges come together. And honestly, pins might be a little more secure than clips for this instance. But then we're just going to run our basting stitch right along the seam from the first clip to the second clip. And then we will move on to the second part of the twist. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll be right back. Now that I have sewn a basting stitch along this edge, it's time for us to do the second half of the twist. So what we need to do is, this is our piece and we need to put one full turn into this piece of fabric before we attach it to this side. So just one full turn, that was 1/2, and this will be 1 full. So now our pin that we marked earlier is down in the lower corner, and we want to bring it up and attach it to our center, just like we did before. Just a very slight overlap. My first time doing this, I left a tiny bit of a gap there unintentionally, but I think it'll look better with that point fully closed. So go ahead and clip it to the center, and then just like we did on the first side, we want to take this corner and attach it at our upper clip. And now we're going to baste along this edge just like we did previously. So I'll go ahead and stitch that off camera. And it was easier to throw a couple pins in there. But of course I left them over on my sewing table, so I'm going to just clip it to show you. So again, we're just going to baste along this edge, and I will be right back and we'll put our upper twist in. Okay friends, we have now put the first twist in our top. It's fully basted in, and all these threads you see are all going to come out. Those are just basting stitches. So you just want to make sure everything's nice and even. You don't want any like little pleats or tucks along your neckline, because those are going to be like glaringly obvious. So I think this looks good and we're ready to move on. So the pattern asks you to next use twist B, which is this piece. As you can see, I've already sewn the two, the front and back together. And the pattern also asks that you mark opposite corners to help you keep track of your twists. So we're going to take our first pinned corner And that will correspond with your shoulder seam, just like this. And like we did before, we're going to go ahead and put it in place. I remember to bring my pins over from my sewing machine so I could show you actually how to do it. Now we have this edge flat, so we're going to put, let's lay that even. So now we have our twist B laying along our neckline. The first pin is at the corner. The second pin is going to be where we have attached the corner of twist A to the neckline. So you're going to have multiple layers there, but that's what we want. I'm going to go ahead and pin it for the extra stability. And just like we did before, we're going to run a basting stitch along this edge to keep everything nice and even. So let me go ahead and pin that in place. I'm going to hop over to the sewing machine, run that basting stitch, and show you our next step. So as you can see, I've basted this down. And now this is where we're going to go ahead and put the twist in this piece and attach it to the opposite shoulder. So to do that, we need to put in 1/2 a twist here. So a 1/2 a twist is basically just moving this pin up to the top. So just flip it. So this was also a pinned corner. We removed that pin when we basted it, and now the other one is on the top. So grab a hold of that corner with the pin and go right through the lower twist. Yay, we're doing it, guys. So now we need to attach this open raw edge to the neckline. And we need to do that so the seam, these raw edges, will be flat against the bodice on the good side, so none of that will be visible. So we kind of have to flip it a little bit upside down. So we're lining up all of our raw edges. And I promise it's a little bit fiddly. Let me make sure you're seeing that on the camera. So all the raw edges are going to be together. So let me grab a pen. We're going to pin the bottom and at the shoulder seam right along the bodice edges. Now I know in the directions of this pattern you wouldn't have the fully assembled bodice at this point, but I debated on not including the twist for the sake of saving fabric because I really had my heart set on some shorts, but it wasn't going to work out anyway. So once I got to the point of where I had cut all of my bodice pieces, I wanted to kind of look and see if that's what I wanted. And I actually ended up deciding that I would go with the twist in the front and not have shorts because I wasn't going to have enough fabric. So I had already assembled my bodice at that point. And that's why I have shoulder seams already sewn, but it will still work out fine. Go ahead and stick a few pins in there. And just like all of the other edges, we need to baste our layers together. And when I've been basting, I'm not sure if I've said out loud, but I'm basting with the bodice side up. And that way I can watch my fabric as it's going into the machine, so I can avoid like any, like where this fabric is dipped in, or like even this where I've pinned it and it's not perfectly smooth. That would absolutely show up when that seam is put in and I turn it out. So I've been sewing with the bodice side up and avoiding any little imperfections around my neckline as I go. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this last basting seam and I will be right back to show you what our twist looks like when it's fully sewn in. Good news, the twisted feature of this top is now sewn in. It's attached fully all the way around with basting stitches, and our twist I think looks fantastic. I love the stripes. So now we're going to move on to our next step. We still have tons of basting stitches in there. That's perfectly fine. Just go ahead and leave them for now. We're going to need our neckline facing for this almost final step. I still have to do all my hemming, but as far as assembling, this will be our final step. So we need to turn our top inside out so we can see all of our fantastic loose threads and basting stitches, and it's just a general mess, honestly. So this step is going to be a little bit easier if you have not in fact sewn your entire bodice together like I have. It'll be a little bit easier for you, but not to worry. Still totally doable. I want to go ahead and mark my center back because we know where our other points are, because our twists are all happening. I am marking our quarter points of our entire bodice, because remember, let me get up here. Now I'm marking all of our quarter points. Our center point hasn't changed at all during this process, but our side points will change because now we're accounting for the back neckline, which previously wasn't affected by our twist. So, and you'll just do a lot of adjusting to get everything to lay flat. Even though this takes a second, it's worth it because you want your facing to go in there evenly, so nothing, you don't want any lumps or bumps. So go ahead and take the time to put it in there correctly. I think the important thing when you're making handmade clothing is all of the attention to detail that ready-to-wear clothing probably gets missed during production. And that's why sometimes when you buy ready-to-wear items, things can be a little weird or distorted or not accurate. And that's because it's probably done in assembly line by a machine or a person who really does not care to take the time. So that's why it's important when you are sewing your own clothing to take the time and make the effort to make it look as nice as possible. But at the same time, I'm not one to absolutely obsess over perfection. That's not me at all. If that's you, you do you. I'm thankful that I'm not obsessive to the point where it can be like infuriating to me that something doesn't turn out absolutely perfect. So now I'm marking the quarter points on my facing. Of course, the shorter portion is the back neckline from the seams, and then the front neckline. All right, here's the trickiest part. We are essentially using this facing to hide all of these edges. So what we need to do is we're going to line up the right side of the facing to the right side of the top, but we're going to do it from the inside of the shirt, which is technically the outside, but how we have it, we're basically laying our facing on the inside. And just like always, you're going to pin or clip along that inside edge. And this was the part that I really struggled with in pattern testing. I was beyond confused with the whole process. As a matter of fact, I'm sure most people in the George and Ginger world know who Livia is. I had her on Facebook Messenger, like nearly in tears. Like I just could not figure it out. And she took lots of pictures of her assembled bodices, tops that she had finished. And I will forever be grateful for her. I was honestly terrified that I was like going to get kicked out of the group. Like, they're not going to want me. They're going to think I don't know how to sew. But I was making the process like a million times worse than it was. So as you can see here, this is still the back. And our facing is laying inside our shirt, but on the good side. We're kind of making a sandwich between the facing, which is this. Here's our twist fabric. And of course our outside bodice fabric. So we're making a little twist sandwich. And all the way around. And the directions absolutely tell you to use your sewing machine first and baste this in place. Because I'm telling you, a basting stitch will come out a million times faster than a serge seam all the way around this edge. I would like to think that we all would get this correct the first time, but I think I ripped mine out like 3 times the first time I made one. And it's just because there's a lot of layers and a lot of pieces. And it's easy to goof things up. So here I am just adding additional clips. I'm going to go ahead and put one at the shoulder seams because we want all that to line up nice and neat. I'm really excited about this version. I'm certain that when Christy sent me this Rapport fabric, she had no idea that orange is my favorite color. I absolutely love the color orange, and I don't wear enough of it, to be honest. But it's such a cheery color, and I think this shade of orange is perfect for summer, but also fall is coming, and I think it works equally well as a fall shade because it's kind of like that darker orange. But the floral obviously has some hints of yellow, some hints of red, and I think it's going to be a great colorway and print for not only summer warmer weather, but I think it can absolutely work for fall. So I actually, this is my first time working with a Rapport print. So I wasn't sure what to expect, but honestly, this fabric, I would use this for so many things. It has a wonderful weight to it. I really like the weight. I would feel confident like making some comfy pants out of it. Obviously, I'm about to have a fantastic Vista top from it. But yeah, it's really been a great fabric to work with. And there are so many colorways, but there's like this rainbowy one that's like all the colors, and it's fantastic, and I'm probably gonna have to order it because I love it so much. But now that we have our facing sandwiched in, we're going to go around with the basting stitch all the way around and just make sure everything's laying flat, everything's nice and even before we go ahead and serge it or real stitch, depending on what you're doing. So let me go ahead and hop over to the machine, run a basting stitch all the way around, and I'll be right back to show you our results. So as you can see, I've now finished the entire neckline. It's just waiting to be pressed. After I ran my basting stitch all the way around, I double checked that everything was laying the way I liked, and then I was able to run a regular stitch over my basting stitches just to be more secure. And then Per the directions, I clipped all the way around my neckline, clipping those curves so it would lay flat, and then did a top stitch. So now my neckline is complete. I've hemmed my sleeves. I just need to hem the bottom portion of my top and it will be ready to go. So I'll be back with some modeled photos so you can check that out. As you can see, I'm really excited about my new Vista top. I was excited to be able to get my top out of one panel of the Rapport Fabric. I do have some smaller pieces left, probably not large enough to make anything for myself other than like hair scrunchies or pockets, but I hung on to it because it's good quality fabric and you never know when you might need just a little piece to add some color to something. The fabric was really nice quality. I love the way it felt when it was sewed. I really enjoyed working with it, and I kind of have my eye on a few other colors, so I'm excited about today's restocking, and I hope you are as well. I do encourage you to head over to the website and pick out your favorite colors before they're all sold out. If you do decide to purchase some, let me know which colors you get down in the comments, or let me know if you've sewn up the Vista top. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I have another one coming at you next week, a different George and Ginger pattern that I'm really excited about. It's just a lovely pattern, and it's like the second fall item I've sewn this year. So I can't wait to share it with you, and I'm so glad that I made a video with a little pattern hack, and I look forward to that publishing next week. So I hope you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to see what's next, and I'll see you then.